All right. Welcome everyone. Um, happy to see everyone here, and thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. We are going to get started. So we will be talking today about an overall overview of Microsoft Copilot and how we can use this securely, make sure that everything's private, and actually harness the power of AI that we see in so many of the tools that are out there today. So, my name is Larissa Cunningham. I am a learning strategist team lead with our Evolve 365 team at Planet Technologies. So, I have had the privilege of getting to work with quite a few organizations as they have been adopting and rolling out Copilot. So, I am excited to see what potential it holds for all of you as well. So, our agenda today is going to be looking at that overview of AI and specifically Microsoft Copilot. We'll talk about how to access it so that you can start using it. And then we'll go into creating prompts, using Copilot chat, some different use cases that you might find yourself in or think that it might work for you moving forward. And then we'll end with a couple of prompting tips or tricks that could help you. So, with all that being said, let's talk about AI in general and what we need to keep in mind. So, we are all seeing all of the news and all of the new features that are coming out with AI. And I imagine we all want to harness some of those capabilities to be able to take things like those really long documents we get shared and summarize them very quickly, know what's going on. We want to be able to create professional customer ready content or just generate new things in general. So at the end of the day, the biggest thing to keep in mind is that when we're using some of these services, we need to make sure that we understand that a lot of these large language models that we think of when we say AI have a tendency to use our conversation or the data we're sharing with them to train and improve that model. And so we need to keep in mind that when we're using non-approved AI web services, it can potentially expose personal or proprietary data to the public. So we need to keep that at the forefront of the mindset as we try some of these different tools. So we'll talk about how Copilot takes that into consideration already and go from there. We have some built-in protections. So um, we are going to be recording this. I neglected to mention that. So that will be made available afterwards. The automatically generated link may not work for you, but we will make sure to share this out so that you can revisit or use some of the things that we talk about today. I also want to encourage anyone who has any questions as we go through today, please feel free to put those in the chat. We would love to address those and help you get the resources you need. So that being said, there are a couple of characteristics of AI to keep in mind, and this is true across the board, not just specific to Copilot. But the first is that with these large language models, they are essentially trying to predict what you need. And AI can produce really phenomenal responses and help pull together a lot of really helpful data, but it has the ability to potentially produce convincing but incorrect responses. So, the biggest thing that I would emphasize when using any AI tool is that we need to make sure we're double checking that we are confirming the output that it's sharing with us, and remember that at the end of the day you are still the expert in your field and you are responsible for what you put together even with AI. So just keep that in mind, and we'll look at some ways that we can double check our work today as well. The other characteristic is that AI is rapidly evolving. It's improving continuously. There are new features, new capabilities coming out every day. And today's AI is the least advanced that we will ever use. So, with that in mind, just keep that mindset that there's going to be new capabilities coming down the road. If it can't do it today, let's see what develops over time. So just keep that in mind as we talk about some of the features that are available now. So with Copilot Chat, a lot of us have some workflows that feel really ingrained that are likely lean on search engines, or that mindset where if you go to Google something, you want to use as few keywords as possible to get a quick search result. But Copilot Chat is built to be that natural language, conversational style of communication. So you don't have to limit yourself in that way anymore. You can ask Copilot a question or make a request and get additional clarity. You can build on the conversation as it goes. And it is like having a real conversation with another person. So don't be afraid to engage conversationally for the best experience, and just test things out as you can. Feel free to seek explanations, gain insight, ask for, why Copilot's doing certain things, and even use it to help jumpstart idea generation and unique content. So there's a lot of opportunity, and we'll talk through that. So before we get into all the details of Copilot specifically, why is Copilot different than the other tools that are out there? The first thing to note is that it is built with the most powerful AI models that are behind a lot of the other tools that you might be familiar with. I won't get too technical today with what's going on behind the scenes, but just know that it is utilizing some of those with it for the groundwork, that it is behind that mechanism. The second piece here comes in handy when we're talking about checking your work and making sure that we're clear on what we're sharing and things are accurate, is the source transparency. So Copilot is pretty good without additional prompting at citing its sources and showing you the data behind its answers. But what I'll note here is if you don't see those sources, feel free to ask Copilot to share its work. It's very, very good at helping you understand where it pulled that information from. The third thing is that while some of the tools you may have heard of, often the versions we have access to have a knowledge cutoff date, that is not the case with Copilot. So you can use Copilot to help you research and find information, and it's going to provide up-to-date answers, and it's not limited by the date of the AI model. So you should be able to get new information in real time. And the last one is the really big kicker, and that's the commercial data protection. So Copilot isn't going to save your prompts or your responses and use it to train the AI model. Anything that you might share, like a document that you might attach to a prompt, none of that's going to be saved and stored and potentially exposed outside of your organization. So that right there is going to be the biggest thing to keep in mind, is that your data and your conversations are safe and secure. So where do we find Copilot? There's a couple of different places. You can go to m365copilot.com. You can locate the homepage with your Microsoft applications in general. You may see a Copilot app as well. A lot of times that might redirect you to the browser experience, but it will take you to that chat experience. If you're using the Microsoft Edge browser, Copilot is actually, when you're signed in with your work account, you should see Copilot in that top right corner, and I'll show you where to find that. And lastly, there is a mobile app as well. So again, you want to make sure that you're signing in with your work account, but this will provide very similar experiences and give you flexibility with where you're accessing. So again, not to reiterate too much, but the biggest thing is make sure you're signed in with your work account, and that's what's going to make sure that you have that enterprise data protection. If you're following along today, which I highly encourage if you can, If you're following along today and you're using a personal account, you may notice some differences there. So just note that. But there's no human eyes on it. After you sign in, your data is encrypted. It's not seen by other humans, and it's personally exclusive. So none of your prompts or your responses from Copilot are going to train the AI model. So if you want to help improve Copilot, there are some ways to give feedback to Microsoft, and that is very beneficial, but it's not going to pull anything that you don't explicitly approve. So when we're going to sign in, if you can follow along today, this is one way that you can access. You can go to m365copilot.com, and I'll actually put two different options here in the chat for you. This is also a valid link here. So if you do m365.microsoft.cloud, that should also take you to the home area, and you can follow along with us. So we'll take a look at this here in my environment in just a moment, but you're going to see options like suggested prompts that you can use so you can jumpstart your experience and start testing things out with Copilot. You'll see a prompt box where you can put in your own unique prompts and make sure that you can customize that, put in any details that you need. You can attach files so that you can provide more context to Copilot. You can even save some of those prompts and revisit recent chats as well. So once you're there, it really is as simple as entering your prompt, whether it's a suggested one or not. Put in your prompt and then send it off to Copilot. If you're looking something up, check those sources and continue the conversation. Keep exploring and expanding on what you build there. So I'm going to come over here and just quickly, I want to show where you can see Copilot. So if you're signed into your work account, like I am here, up in that top right-hand corner, you should see Copilot. And if you open that up, you'll see a smaller version of what we just took a sneak peek at. So that's one area. Most of my demonstration today is going to be in private browser, so I don't see that same Copilot icon. So I just wanted to point that out if you're looking for it. So feel free to use whichever makes the most sense for you. So I've come over here and I am on the Copilot tab from the left-hand side, and this is where we get to start having some fun. So here in the middle, you can get some inspiration. If you select any of these to test out, they'll automatically fill in your prompt for you if you want to make adjustments or add more information. You can, but if you're happy with where it's at, all you have to do is hit send right here and start conversing. So we'll do some of that here in just a minute, but that's what happens when you explore some of these. They might look a little different for you. It does change and refresh, and so don't worry if some of your suggestions are different than mine. Down here in your text box, this is where we can create our own unique prompts. And you should see a paperclip icon where you can add a file as well. So if you are looking to analyze a document, get feedback, want to implement something new into something like that, you can add a file and that becomes a source Copilot can analyze and respond to. You can also drag and drop your files into a prompt as well. So if you already have your File Explorer open, feel free to just drag those over and drop them into this area. There is a microphone option. So if it is easier for you to talk with Copilot and speak back and forth, you can speak your prompt and send it off that way. You just have to make sure your microphone is enabled and allowed. Now, if you are searching for more inspiration or more prompts, maybe you're even just trying to understand what makes a good prompt, right above where you prompt, you should see this little square with a sparkle on it, and that is where your prompt gallery is going to be. So if I click on this, a pop-up will come up, and By default, I'm going to see a lot of the Microsoft created prompts that I can look to for inspiration. And if you want to, instead of scrolling through all of them all at once, you can filter these based on the task you're trying to achieve. So if you're creating a brand new document or idea, feel free to filter on the create option. You can pick multiple of these if you're looking through them. So feel free to explore that way. And there's also a filter based off of job type. So you can get inspiration there as well. Now, if you do like any of these, I will point out that when I hover over any of them, in the bottom right-hand corner, you should see a ribbon outline. And if I hover over that, it says Save Prompt. So if I click Save Prompt, where does that go? Up here at the top, instead of Microsoft prompts, you can click on Your Prompts. And anything that you've saved to use again at another time are going to be listed here. And you'll even have the option to save prompts you create that are beneficial to you uniquely. So I can always adjust these and remove them if I no longer need to have them here, but that gives you a very quick access versus having to always scroll through and filter to find the prompt you know is there. So from here, I do want to point out a couple more things before we start prompting. Up at the very top, you'll see an option for new chat. A really important understanding with your conversations with Copilot are they are contextual. So as you prompt Copilot and it responds, if you send another prompt, it's going to pull from some of the information you've already shared and how it's responded to you and build on that. So if you start to change topic, it might send you some information that is trying to mix the two topics together. So the easiest thing to do is start a new conversation, clear that slate and that mindset for Copilot, and start again. So that is always there for you, and you can still go back to previous conversations. So right next to that is where you'll see that green shield with a check mark. That's what confirms I have the enterprise data protection and don't have to worry about my data training Copilot. And over here, the last option should be a little square with an arrow. That panel is going to open your chat history. So if you need to start a conversation, don't worry, you can still go back and jump into the previous one you were working on and continue from there. You don't lose any of that progress or context you worked so hard to build. All right. So let's start actually playing with some prompts here and seeing how Copilot responds. So I'll be sharing some of these here so that you can try them as well, but let's just start to get a feel for how this might work for you. So as a very simple prompt, I'll go ahead and put this in the chat if anyone wants to try this as well. I'm just going to ask for Copilot to tell me some interesting facts about, we're going to say Denver, Colorado. And I'll send that off. So really quickly, I asked for 3 and here I see 1, 2, 3. And it's telling me some interesting information. It's known as the Mile High City. It was the first to legalize that, and Sunshine Galore. So if I'm curious about any of these, typically it does give me a area here where I can review its sources, but since it didn't, gives me the opportunity to show how Copilot responds if I need that. So can you cite your sources? So from here, just simply asking that, it kind of repeated its first response, but I have sources now, and it usually does this automatically, but every once in a while it doesn't. So if I have questions on this, I can hover over the reference number at the end of the first option, whatever it looks like for you. And I can look at the web address. I can click on this and actually go there to review it myself. And sometimes if it's really long, you might see them listed down here as well. So if you just want to see all of them at once, feel free to go to the very bottom of your response and kind of take a click through those options as well. So let's go ahead and try another one. So I'm going to start a new chat and let's see how it does in just helping me understand a fun fact about a new application. So I sent that in the chat as well, but I'm going to pick a Microsoft application. We're going to say Power Automate, and we'll pretend I've never used it before and I'm interested in trying it out. So just sharing some information with Copilot. So it's very conversational, very friendly. It's excited for me, and it's telling me some quick details about it. And this would be a great opportunity for me to continue that conversation and learn more about this, what it could do for me. Down here at the bottom, you may have noticed some of these different suggestions in prompts. So these are, again, contextual. So as you have different conversations, they will adjust to the topic you're in, and it will make suggestions that it thinks you might need. So from here, I can continue this conversation. How do I create my first flow? And I don't have to type anything. I can just send that off, and it will start to give me more information. It's searching the web, and it's going to walk me through that. So it does a great job of breaking things down into steps if you're trying to achieve certain features or get to know certain tools. So it breaks it down. You can continue this conversation and start to understand. You'll notice that it cited its sources. So those are here in the response, but they're also at the very end. And if I want to use this later on, I can simply copy this. I could share it with somebody else that might benefit, save it to a document or notebook, and work with it again at a future time. The other option that you'll see is this option to edit in Pages. So if I select this, what it's going to do is actually take my whole response that I got and turn it into a page I can start to customize and adjust. I can even share this with other people and have them put their feedback and input here as well. And I don't lose my chat. So that's still over here on the side. I can keep building on this. So up here at the top, it pulled a title just from my prompt itself. So I might want to rename that to Power Automate Steps or something that helps you understand what that page is about. And you'll notice that as I click through this, I can start to make adjustments, clarify, take out steps or notes that might not be helpful. This little 6-dot menu will let you reorder them. So if you need to edit in that way, you can. And you'll also notice as you use Pages that if you hit this little plus icon, you get a lot of pre-formatted options you can quickly insert to continue developing your page. So anywhere from inserting code to inserting a table to, if you scroll down even farther, you can mention people who are collaborating, add in things like a Kanban board where you can keep track of tasks. So it's a really versatile opportunity here. Now, if I wanted to take this even further, I could actually convert it into a Word document. It will change some of the style and formatting here, but allow me to maybe publish this in a different way or share and make different adjustments. So if I click open in Word, it'll take just a moment, but it's going to take my title here of the page, create a draft for me, and automatically in the background, I'll get a document saved to my OneDrive that I can continuously refer to and adjust. So it looks a little different here, but it has all that same information, including the board that we added. It's just in a table format, and we even have our different word styles in here as well. So if you have a question on where this went, go ahead and come up to the top and click on the name of your document. You can rename it here, and it will also tell you the location this is saved to, so you can make sure to find it very easily in the future. So I'll go ahead and close this out since it's saved for me. And from here, I can continue chatting with Copilot. If I wanted to get a better overview or add more context to this page, you have the option of doing that. And what you'll do when you get those responses are just add to a recent page instead of creating a new one. So I'll go ahead and close this out for now, but wanted to give a quick preview of that opportunity for you. And we're going to go ahead and hit new chat one more time. So from here, what I'll point out, since we just looked at pages, are along the left-hand navigation, there is an option for pages here. This is going to take you to that home area, and your previous pages that are saved will be here as well. So you can always come back and edit later on. And the other place, if you are accessing this in another area, this three-dot menu up here at the top, that is going to give you the option to look at your recent pages as well. So if I open this up, I can actually search as well. So if you have a lot, you can filter it down and see your more recent pages you've worked on. So that is one easy way to start turning responses from Copilot directly into documents you might need. All right, so let's talk about how this helps us in our work settings. So there are a lot of different ways we can start to use Copilot chat. And one of the more popular things that is very helpful and saves a lot of time is summarizing different documents. Whether it's a policy document or just one that's really long that you need to understand, you can attach that to your prompt and ask Copilot to give you that summary and even tell it how long it needs to be. Do you need a bullet list summary with 5 bullets, or do you want 3 paragraphs that summarize something? Adding those details into your prompt will help you get what you're looking for. You can also use it to draft internal communications, write in certain styles with certain tones, and help you create an elevated communication with the opportunity to kind of converse back and forth and almost have somebody else double check. You can create learning assessments, you can brainstorm ideas, engagement, opportunities, and things like that. And another way is if you're working with some really technical documentation, you can have Copilot help you summarize in plain language. Maybe you need to share that same sentiment to a different audience and adjust the complication level. You can, let's say you've recorded a meeting and you have a transcript. You can take that transcript, send it off to Copilot, and have it help you understand the takeaways or anything that wasn't resolved, and use it to make sure everyone's on the same page with the same expectations. Simplifying complex language is another really great place to bring Copilot in and help reword, rephrase for various different types of audiences. You can compare options, use it to help you analyze. This is one place where I really like to see Copilot's work and have it explain to me why it's doing something. So that's something you can work with through your conversation. Outline a workshop, or even just create a word cloud from feedback that you've received. So a lot of different ways to approach it, but Copilot's very versatile. So let's walk through a couple scenarios where you could weave Copilot in and out. So if you are working through a procurement cycle time, the first step might be to gather any RFP requirements. And in order to do that, you might take a list to Copilot and have it help you structure it, help you summarize any of those key needs, and help you get to that next step. And that should hopefully save you a lot of time by generating a really structured starting point, and also helping make sure that it's complete and you're not missing anything. So once you're happy with that, maybe the next step is analyzing some procurement data itself. So take that procurement data and have Copilot help describe those trends. Feed it to Copilot to analyze and see if there are any patterns or bottlenecks it can see from the data you're sharing. This gives you some really quick insights without having to utilize spreadsheets and complicated formulas or dashboards to get to the bottom of what you're trying to understand. The next step might be doing something like standardizing a contract template. And so you can take everything you've already learned and have it create that clarity and alignment you might be needing for a standard template to use moving forward. And from there, you would present those procurement strategies and have Copilot help you outline the narrative and the talking points to help the team with this change. And then you could actually use Copilot to help summarize for a stakeholder meeting, help you frame that for the audience you're looking for. This is going to help you turn those discussions into really actionable opportunities moving forward. And then lastly, we can have Copilot help us write that email and send the communication out. Hopefully this gives you that elevated quality, saves you some time, and helps everybody understand how to work through this process moving forward. So Copilot took on a lot of different hats and responsibilities through this life cycle, but it came into play to help with a lot of different areas. To look at another example, if you are someone who works with a lot of policies and need to update those as they change, you could have Copilot help you even from the very beginning when you're just outlining a policy update. And then if you need to actually draft the language, Copilot does a phenomenal job of understanding either language that you're sharing with it and saying, I need to match this style, or coming up with that language so that you can set that tone moving forward and then help you ensure consistent professional tone and clarity there. Obviously, when we're doing policies, we need to share that with leadership most of the time so we can communicate those key points and have Copilot pull those out. So rather than us trying to sit down and take that extra time to pull those main points, Copilot can do it very, very quickly. Now, when you're changing a policy, a lot of times this affects your staff or your colleagues. So have Copilot help you create an anticipated FAQ that kind of changes something from that tone of reading a policy that might be harder to understand, and turn that into a question answer conversation that might translate a little bit more for the people it's affecting. So with all of your tools that you've now developed with Copilot, you can draft your email announcement with supporting documentation so that everybody has what they need to move forward with this change. And if you're doing an in-person briefing, again, kind of that same idea where we have Copilot help us create that flow of delivering that message confidently with the main points all being covered. Now, the last one, again, hopefully this all just inspires you with the opportunities for how you can start to weave Copilot in. Let's say you're responding to a public inquiry. If you take your inquiry that you received, maybe there are some confusing language or different acronyms in there, you can put that into Copilot and it will identify the core concern and even clarify what certain things might mean in that context. And then you can turn around and say, great, help me draft a response. And so you can ensure that you're not only saving time, but also making sure that that public inquiry receives a respectful, clear, and aligned response that meets those standards that you're looking for. Now, in these situations, you might have to share a similar message to various different audiences. So have Copilot help you do that rather than reinventing the wheel for each group that you might be sharing this with, whether that's you're sharing it to different audiences or whether you're sharing it in different mediums. Maybe you need an email and a social media post as well as a formal letter. Those all have very different elements that they need, and Copilot can help you make sure they're all there and in alignment. So we can bring Copilot in to help us add supporting information, review things for clarity and tone. It's a really great proofreader. Maybe you like to take the first stab at what you're writing, but having that second not quite pair of eyes, but that second opportunity to get feedback can be really helpful. And then again, we can create templates and make sure that we're set up for future encounters and future opportunities that might pull in this scenario that we just worked through. So a lot of this comes into saving you time, trying to elevate how your communication and see how Copilot actually works through that life cycle. So we're going to say that we're implementing a new policy. I'll take on the persona of someone in IT, and we're bringing in a bring your own device policy. So I'm going to not make you watch me type this whole thing, and we're just going to tell Copilot hopefully everything it needs. So I'm working on creating a bring your own device policy for our organization, and we want to allow employees to use their personal device for work, but we need to ensure data security, compliance with company standards. So can you help me draft a professional BYOD policy that includes sections on eligibility, security requirements, and acceptable use? So I'm going to send that off. And immediately I'm already getting a response back. It's starting to outline all of these and list out the different sections that each group might need. So security requirements, it's talking about device security, encryption, password protection, all of those things that might be related in this type of policy. Now, if I need to know where it's getting some of these ideas, I could have that conversation. But once it's done, most important thing you're going to do is review it. So again, you are the expert. So we're going to come back through here and actually read through this whole policy and see if we're missing anything. So we have a lot of really good content already, but maybe I realize, you know what, reading this, there's a couple areas that we need to add to. So as simply as just continuing this conversation, I'll say, okay, great. Can you please add information on support limitations and clear employee and user responsibilities? So there's an element in there where I want to make sure everyone knows what their role is. So it's going to pull from my original prompt and this conversation and say, okay, that's easy. And it's adding to what it already gave me. And we're going to cross our fingers as we scroll down that it added those additional topics as well. So sure enough, I see support and limitations broken down for me and employee and user responsibilities. So it actually added a couple other things as well. So it really built on the additional information I gave it. Now at this point, let's say I really like it. I've read through it and I don't feel like there's anything else missing. I can now go to my next step, which is to actually outline this for the policy itself. So I like to be very kind to Copilot. So I treat it very much like a friend and say, okay, thank you for the outline. Now, can you help me draft the full policy language for each section? And I want to write it in a formal and professional tone that's suitable for inclusion in an employee handbook, right? So we're adding in all of these pieces so that all of this is helping Copilot figure out how to phrase things, how to write them, and what tone to take them in. So I'm including all of these sections down here and making sure that's part of it, and we can build on it. So again, I'll send that off and let's see what it does. So it might be very similar to some of our previous ones, but something that I could actually copy and paste directly into one of our documents. And I'm actually going to see if Copilot will help me figure out where to do that. If we have an existing document, it might need to be inserted to. So we're finished here. It's done generating. I can scroll through this. Again, make sure you proofread it and you're signing off on it. And from here, I might need to say, okay, this is going into a document we already have. I don't know where it fits best. So I'll say, okay, where would you recommend inserting this in our IT policies document? Now, if I were to send this as it is, Copilot's not going to know much about that document. It doesn't have access to it. So instead, I'm going to actually attach the document itself. And as I drag and drop, it'll tell me when to let go and add this to the end here. And I want to point out this section up here. So if you're adding something for the very first time to a chat with Copilot, in order to analyze it or reference it, it does need it to be in your OneDrive. So what will happen is you'll attach this and it will create a file in your OneDrive called Microsoft Copilot chat files. And it'll add it there so that you can reference it, again. In this case, I'm actually seeing that I already have this uploaded. So I could preview that older file or continue on with this one. But in this case, I'm actually going to use the other file that I've already put there and can already reference. So I'll go ahead and send this off and we'll see what it suggests for me. All right, so it's pulling in that information and it's actually telling me, okay, based off of what I saw here, I think it would fit after the scope section. And since it might still be generating, I'll come over here. This is the document I attached and looks like scope is right here at the beginning. So I can kind of review, see if I agree with that, but it's helping me outline what the new document might look like. So it's showing the introduction, the scope, and then inserting that new policy we just created together. So I can, of course, decide if that truly makes the most sense. We can copy and paste the whole thing or a section of it. When you do hit copy here, just know that it pulls everything from its response. So if there are conversational elements, like feel free to adjust the placement, just that might need to be removed when you're working with it. So keep an eye out for that if that happens or you're using the copy and paste feature. So from here, this is when we might need to start bringing in leadership and notifying them of these changes. So all of this can be happening on different days. Yes, we're looking at it all at once, but if I were to hit new chat, have a different conversation, I can send this off and get Copilot's response. But if it's the next day or a couple days later, I can go back to that conversation we just had, and it's right here in my history. So if you have a conversation that you're building on like this, what I would recommend is when you hover over that history, there's a 3-dot menu right here, and you can rename it. So I'm going to go ahead and say BYOD policy update so that I know very quickly within my chat history which one is the one I want to go to. So I updated this. I can jump back in here, and I have all of that context we've built on. So at this point, let's go ahead and ask Copilot to summarize those changes. So it's going to, again, look through that whole conversation and try to summarize this for me. But it was a pretty long document. So sometimes the summaries are a little bit long, and we need to be more specific with the length that we're looking for. So I'm going to be really specific and say, not only do I want this to be shorter, I also want it to be in a table so that I can share this as an update in a meeting chat or an email. So short and to the point, I'm saying I want it more concise and I want a table, and right away I'm getting that. Of course, we can go back and forth if there are more columns or rows that I want. I can clearly specify that to Copilot and go from there. But you can see how it's very easy to have Copilot engaged through the life cycle of your different projects and start to integrate it here. All right, so I do want to come back to prompting, and this is the core of your engagement with Copilot, even if you're using some of those suggested prompts. So what makes an effective prompt? The first thing is going to be making sure it's specific and detailed. So you want to be really clear with Copilot. It's usually best if you work in full sentences with instructions. But you also want to consider adding things like tone and purpose, the preferred format you want it to come through as. So while there's a time and a place for some of those short and sweet prompts, if you're looking to develop something with Copilot, the more specific and more documents you can reference, the better your outcome. In contrast, if you use only a few words and you're really vague, you're likely not going to get exactly what you want on the first try. So it's going to take more prompting and more clarification to get to the end goal you're hoping for. But there is no wrong way to prompt. It's a natural conversation. So experiment, see what kind of responses you get, and start to get a feel for how Copilot responds to you. Now, if this is helpful, we'll go through a couple of prompt elements that we found to be very beneficial to include. The first to consider is adding in a persona. If you are trying to analyze some documents from an HR perspective, tell Copilot to take on that role. If you are doing a certain task from the perspective of an expert or a coach or a friend, those are very different ways to approach the same thing. So let Copilot know how it's approaching that task. The next is to clearly state what you're expecting from the AI. So if you're expecting a table format, that's very different than if you're trying to create a bullet list of step-by-step instructions, right? So what is it expected to do? Is it answering a question for you, or is it helping generate something new? The next, sometimes this is tied into the task itself, but it can be its own distinct element. What format are you looking for? You noticed a minute ago when I asked for a summary, the original summary came through in a bullet list, but when I clarified I wanted it in a table, it gave a very different output and was maybe more in line with what I was looking for. So what kind of format are you trying to get? The next is what audience you are sharing this with. Are you targeting experts in a field, or new employees to your organization, or general public? All of these are going to have different tones and different levels of complexity. And lastly, again, sometimes this is woven into one of the previous elements, but specifying the tone up front can really help make sure that it meets the mood and approach that you're looking for. So again, if you're presenting something to a team of executives, it might be different than if you're sharing something humorous with your team that's meant to be lighthearted, right? So what kind of tone are we hoping for? Including this in your initial prompt, again, is going to reduce the number of times you have to make those clarifications to Copilot and get you to what you're looking for quicker. So if you use all of these suggestions, your prompt could look something like this, where we fill in the blank. You can fill in different personas, what kind of task are you looking for, and how do we want it formatted? Who's it going to be read by, and what's that tone or style? So filling in all of this still might lead to additional context that needs to be added, but it gives you a really great jump start. So as an example, let's say we worked in communications and we need Copilot to come in as a communications officer in a public health department where we need to draft a press release. In that press release, we want to summarize the outcomes of a recent vaccination campaign, and we want to include those key metrics and community engagement highlights using a clear and public-facing tone. Now, if we were to switch these out, almost like a Mad Libs there, you could get a very different result. And you can kind of play with that to see how different those results can come through. So the last thing I kind of want to highlight before I jump back over to our demo and open things up to any questions we've missed are just a couple tips and tricks to try. If they are relevant to your scenarios, you can have Copilot ask you questions to improve your response. This is something that I actually did for for myself, when I was analyzing two different opportunities to move forward, I wasn't totally sure what context to give Copilot. And so instead of trying to anticipate it, I said, here's what I want to do. Ask me this number of questions so that I can clarify to you anything you need. So if you don't know what context to give, have it ask you some questions first and then generate its response. Another thing I do very frequently is if I know I need to give 3 examples or create 2 different options, I might ask for 4 or 5 so that I can look through the list and decide which ones I like the best. So rather than re-prompting multiple times and asking for more and more, I upfront ask for more than I need and kind of pick and choose what makes the most sense. Another option is to say, show your work. Please explain how you figured this out or what logic you used. This is very beneficial if you're making some kind of evaluation or comparison. And especially if the comparison isn't uh, rooted in the links or resources, it might be better to have it just lay that out and explain its progression. The other one that we tried, kind of took a look at was creating an FAQ document. You can have it start to put some of that information together for you and go from there. A couple other tips would be to actually ask Copilot how to create an effective prompt. So if you're still trying to figure out what kind of information to include, it does a great job of explaining this is how you can create that prompt, and here's why. It even gives the explanation behind why that's important for it. You can ask clarifying questions, afterwards. This kind of relates to one of those previous examples, and you can turn really large tasks into smaller tasks. So rather than trying to achieve everything with one large, complicated prompt, you can take that and break it down into bite-sized pieces and layer that information together. So instead of asking for the full final results, we asked for an outline of our policy, and then we turned it into our document after we kind of made sure that it was everything we wanted. So we broke it into those little steps and made that large, daunting expectation much easier to achieve. So these are just some different suggestions you can think about including into your prompts or adding into your conversation. But at the end of the day, when you're working with Copilot, the biggest thing that's going to determine your success is keeping a growth mindset. So AI is moving very quickly, and it's really easy to wonder if you're behind or if you're doing things right. And we really just need to be focusing on progress and not necessarily perfection. So if you find yourself with any of these ideas where we think AI can't do something, or there's only one tool that works better than others, just know that it's continuously evolving. You are still meant to be in the driver's seat. It's meant to act as an assistant for you and help you, but you are still, again, that expert. So I know we're coming close to time here, and I've been talking quite a lot. So I do just want to pause and see if there are any questions that we haven't had a chance to answer or anything we want to see again.
Larissa, if you could just do an overview of the screen and maybe how the ellipses close and what happens when you close menus and how to reopen them.
Absolutely. So coming back here to this open page here, this is kind of where we started. And once you're prompting, you might start a new chat. That's going to bring back this page after we create this new context. But if you're looking for a previous conversation, you're going to come to this top right corner, and this is going to be your previous chat. So if we click see more, we can go even farther into our history, and clicking on any of these is going to reopen the conversation. So if we wanted to from here, we can jump right back in, continue to ask questions. There's still another menu when you hover over those, and that little menu is going to allow you to rename that conversation or potentially delete that conversation if you don't want it in your history anymore. Maybe you like to keep only the ones you're going back and visiting. So that is kind of how you navigate that. If that's not open initially, it is this little square with an arrow. So that little panel is what will open or close your chat history. The other thing we talked about navigation-wise was the option to edit in Pages. So if we wanted to revisit that page we created earlier, we could come over here to the left-hand side and click on Pages. That would bring us to anything we've worked in recently here. We could create new pages, etc. But even from the Copilot conversation, this little three-dot menu up here at the top, that is also another way you can get to your recent pages. So this will open up those conversations as well, and you can use this little search to go through and clarify. Now, I did mention earlier that you can save prompts from this prompt gallery, but you can also do it with your own prompts as well. So if you are going through your conversation and you like a prompt you put together, you can go back up and hover over that prompt and actually copy it, edit, or you'll see that same familiar ribbon and we can save the prompt and rename it something that would trigger us to know what's included there. So when we do that, in fact, I'll do this one up here. So summarize policy changes. So we can rename it, hit save. And to find it later on, you're going to go to the little icon above your text box where it says View Prompts. That will open up your prompt gallery, and you would come over here to Your Prompts to go back through those. So this is the one we just saved. Were there any other areas of navigation you wanted to cover again, Jennifer?
I think that covers it. I think that the only other question that kind of came up was the in private browsing in the top corner, and that's just because Larissa's using a demo account, and that's who she's logged into her browser as. So that doesn't have anything to do with the Copilot information there.
Correct. Thank you. Sorry if that caused any confusion. Normally, you'll probably see Copilot over here in the corner, and you can jump back and forth between what you're used to there. Yeah, I see a hand up.
Yes, my question is for the recording. Is there a way we could download it, maybe to go over it again?
Yeah, so we're going to make the recording available via YouTube link, and so we'll be sharing that out in the next day or two. We just have to get it downloaded and processed on our end, so we will have that available to you, and then you should be able to return to it as you need.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone so much for your time. If you do continue to have questions, we would love to help and kind of share any resources that we can for you. Hopefully this was something to inspire you and get excited about. So we appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you.